Let's talk about how this Apple Vision Pro that can capture and play back spatial video has inspired me to reach out to Canon for this particular setup so I can film my friend's wedding in a very unique and different way for me to edit and play it back on an Apple Vision Pro again. There are a lot of differences between the way how a Vision Pro spatial video and a Canon VR system, or VR system in general, is capturing the footage in the scene, and I like to share some of my learning processes with you. And just using this VR system from Canon in general, it is a different learning curve altogether. There are different nuances that I'm finding out along the way, and by no means is my journey with this entire emerging technologies really finished yet. It's just really started, but I feel that this is a great immersion of creativity and also emerging technology, and we're blending all these together. So let's learn together. I'm Art and ArtIsRight. Before we go on, I'd like to say a big thank you to Canon USA, Canon CPS, along with my friend Nick and Michael at Canon for helping me link up with the right people and educating me on the entire system, and also linking me up with this system as well, because the learning curve was steep and I don't have the hardware, and they are literally the only camera company out there right now that are on the consumer level that has this type of setup, which I think is just really cool. But before we go through all of those, let's talk about square one. Let's go back to the very beginning. So I have purchased an Apple Vision Pro. Obviously I did a review of it, and no, I did not return mine. I kept mine. I'm not using it quite as much, and one of the things when I was doing a review for this device, I mentioned that in the future, it may be the point that we have spatial photographers, that we have spatial videographers, because being able to see not even just the photo part, but the spatial video on this is absolutely profound. I've seen it for the first time in the Apple Store, sitting through a demo. It was really cool. Filming my family on that, I think, is really awesome. Showing it to my friends. In fact, I showed it to Kevin, to which he mentioned that this would be really great if we could film our family members who may have already passed away in spatial, so we can relive those moments with them again, and that's just absolutely touching. I photographed my friend Jeff's wedding, and I was showing him this Apple Vision Pro and spatial video, and I asked him, wouldn't it be great if you can relive your entire wedding day again in spatial? And he's just saying, yes, absolutely. And another thing that I thought about the use for these spatial video is to do an interview with your family members, to just get the lineage, to just have them tell you who they are, who they're from, show them some pictures, or show the next generation some pictures, because a lot of times, if you really think about a family archive, unless somebody is really keeping track of all of those, we really live in about like a 5, maybe 7 generation at the very most. Put yourself in the middle, and it's either 2 or 3 generations before, 2 or 3 generations after. If you start to look at any pictures beyond that, most of the time you don't even know who they are anymore. And the people that have come before are not there to tell you, but this would be an absolutely new way to just learn about your lineage, because it can be recorded that way. And it's like they are telling you the story in person. But enough about the spatial video. So that's the inspiration between all this. And that led me to reach out to Canon USA through all of these connections and everything to really figure out, how can we do this? Because I know you have a VR system. I like to capture this wedding in VR so that I can play it back on here. And throughout the entire conversation I have with them, I keep using the word spatial. And you know, they did ask me, like, what do you mean by spatial? Explain that to me. And it's the first time that I really understood the distinction between the two. And I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. But one thing before I do that is that you can capture spatial video with an Apple Vision Pro, though if you wear that on an event day, it will look weird really quickly. There are 2 other iPhones right now that can capture spatial, and that is the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So now I have 2 cameras running. iPhone 15 Pro Max, this is going to be doing the spatial video, and I have an EOS R5C that's going to be doing the VR. The goal here is to use this to capture sound and everything in 3D space, but what I'm also trying to do is figure out a way how to get this into an Apple Vision Pro. So we'll see how successful this is going to be, but I think this is going to be really awesome. I capture my friend's wedding in spatial and also in VR using the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I have this rig that I pretty much just literally snap onto the hot shoe and mount the phone on top, filming with this in VR and filming with the iPhone in spatial. Now, the thing that you need to know about filming an iPhone in spatial anyway right now is that you're limited to 1080p at 30 frames per second. I'm not 100% sure if the frame per second can be increased or not. I've tried, it didn't work on the phone, and we just need to get going. But for sure, you cannot really do spatial in 4K, which is kind of a, you know, one of those things that's like, I wish I could. Whereas on this EOS R5C, you can film in 8K, and technically if we film in 8K, we divide that in half, we technically have about like close to 4K per eyes or so. This is a rough estimation. I know some of you are doing math out there and like, it's not really quite that art, and I certainly understand. I'm just oversimplifying a lot of these terminologies, but essentially you can do that. So I was using the EOS R5C along with Canon. This is their RF 5.2 millimeter 2.8L dual fisheye. It's really cool. Now the thing is that with this lens, I can literally just put my hands just right in front of the lens a little bit and I see everything. So there was a lot of challenges in just getting this set up to work. It sees everything, and you have to be fairly close to the subject in order for you to get that kind of three-dimensionality to the subject that you're filming. And I think this is a good segue to talk about the differences between the spatial on an Apple system and a VR system. So let's start out with the VR system. For those of you to play VR before, I dabble it in a little bit. Pretty much VR, virtual reality, is really defined as almost 180-degree view. You want to capture everything from like this side to this side, top down, bottom, so that if you look around in that environment, it's as if you were there and you can see all those things. Spatial on Apple system is totally different. It just really punches in on the subject, everything gets blurry, it doesn't really matter anymore, and it's really just a focus on the subject in 3D, the one that you have right in front of the camera. So that's the difference between these two. One of them is really defined for broad range, the other one is really defined for just punch in close up of those moments, or you know, you can step back a little bit more, but mostly it's close up. And amazingly enough, with the wedding that I filmed for my friend, right when they kissed, they were doing a bubblegum salute, which is really cool, and the wind was blowing at the camera. So pretty much the spatial and also the VR was able to capture all the bubbles flying in the camera. I think that was really cool. I might have mentioned that already, but I thought I'd share that again. So super wide lens. The other thing too is the setup for this camera is going to be unique and different, because if you just set this on a tripod, it will see the tripod leg. So what I have to do is use the plate to mount on my video tripod, extended that out all the way, set everything to pretty much on the edge, and I also have this Nisi, which is a macro rail, so that you can do the adjustment for like macro photography and so forth. So I'm using this on top of the clamp from my tripod. So pretty much this rig was extended out about like that much or so from the tripod, and the leg was still in the shot a little bit. And personally for me, I would love to clear that, but I'm okay. This is my first time doing it, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna use the equipment I have instead of buying more. So that was the first challenge. The other challenge that I ran into is power. The LPE6 battery that comes with the camera is enough to run the camera in 4K and everything, but when it comes to 8K at 60 frames per second, it does not provide that much power anymore. So for that, during my setup, what I have is this Shargeek. This is the Storm 2 Slim, and I pretty much charged this up full, and this was pretty much powering the camera with a USB Type-C cable. So it was doing power delivery for the entire time in order for the camera to have enough power to capture footage in 8K 60 frames per second. So there's a lot of challenges in doing this, and this was pretty much strapped onto my video tripod with Velcro. And the other thing too is that yes, this is the one that I got as a review unit, and yes, I did test this. It's working fine. It's still working for this particular shoot, and I did have this for a while now, so I just want to share that with you, that I do test a product that comes on my channel when they sent me to review. Either way, it's just a really interesting challenge. And the other thing is the memory card. So these use CF Express Type B, and for that I need to get a fairly large card, because a 512 will only hold like 24 or 32 minutes or something like that. There's a mathematical computation that I did, so these are just what I can remember right now, sharing this experience with you. But being able to use this, I think, is really neat. So this is the EOS R5C, if I have not mentioned that already. The back comes out a little bit more. There's a fan that's running to constantly cool the sensor. This did not overheat. The iPhone did not overheat, although the day that we were filming the wedding, it was not in direct sun, thank goodness. It was kind of cloud cover and the weather was on the cooler side of things, but we were able to get through it just fine. And I got the footage now in 8K VR on the Canon And I also got the spatial. The nice thing about capturing spatial on an Apple system, even though you may not have the resolution, is that you can share or airdrop the footage from the iPhone to the Vision Pro and pretty much play it back right away. And you also get this spatial audio that comes with it. Now, this can capture audio, but it's not necessarily going to do spatial, so you're going to need other rigs and microphone. So part of why I'm doing it this way too is to capture in VR, is to have the footage here, and I can use the sound that I have captured with an iPhone 15 Pro Max to merge in with this track once I really start to edit this file. So the file in the end is a proprietary format that needs to go through a lot of processing. Canon has a software for this, which I still need to play with. That's why I said my journey is not really finished with this yet. But essentially, because our camera turns everything upside down when it photographs, and normally there is a prism that rotates everything on the DSLR, or on these, you know, there's a program and software inside the camera that flips everything right side up for us. But essentially, when we're just doing one singular image, we don't have to think about things as much. It just really turns things upside down and revert left to right. But when you do the upside down on this, it's not too bad. But when it comes to two different lenses, one for the right eye, one for the left eye, it needs to be revert left to right in a very unique and interesting way with those video clips. So I need to use Canon software to get that out. Now, as far as I know, there is a way to re-encode the metadata from here to get it to play back on an Apple Vision Pro, though it may not be in spatial. And I really wish for the day that spatial video would just become a standard, become an open standard that any camera, for that matter, that has a lens system like this that just goes beyond iPhone can just really capture this. Because part of the reason why I really want to do this is because let's capture their event in full high resolution. And if we should film them at their first dance or wherever that may be, we should be able to do it in a way that we can capture that at full fidelity, at a high ISO and low light situation without having to worry about a lot of noise and all those things. And this is where all this inspiration for this setup has come from. I think I've shared a lot with what's going on already. Oh, the other thing too is because, one more thing, because we set up everything, that all these things are heavy, and the camera is also kind of like front heavy a little bit more as well. So it adds a lot of weight. So we have to set our tripod in a way that angles it backward a little bit and balance it with like some counterweight, like sandbag, to make sure things doesn't fall. But I just think it was really neat to go through that experience and to view the footage right now, even just what I got on the spatial video, I think it's awesome. But you know, like I said, it's a learning process for me right now. And I hope you got a few things out of this and just kind of seeing my thought process and the inspiration and learning about all these things, because I think it's really neat. This is my VR journey and also spatial video journey. I really think that if this can really happen, if we can really make the technology work somehow, this may be a bridge into a holographic setup where it's kind of like a projector, but it's a holograph where we see people moving around and we can see things instead of just strapping something in front of our eyes. We never know where technology is going in the future, but I think that this is one iteration of it. And for me, it's interesting enough to explore. So again, spatial video that inspired me to reach out to Canon, and thank you again to Canon for providing me this loaner to test out, to try out. And they even say that, hey, you know what, if this works out for you, that's great. If it doesn't work out, at least you have tried it. But we're all about the creative process, and this is why I said in the very beginning of this video that this creative community, it's really a big community that if you need something, you can always reach out to the right people, and you know, they are definitely going to be willing to help. If you have any questions or comment, please share them. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit on the bell if you're new. I'm ArtIsRight, and I thank you for your time.